Ooh, welcome back to the Saturday Scholars College Football Podcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. That is Gonzo. I am Shoob, and today we are here to do Week 2 recap. Let's go, man. We are Zanless today, at least for the next few minutes. He might join on here within the next 30 minutes or so, and he's going to be here to do Week 3 picks coming up at the end of the pod. But today we're here to do the recap, and boy, there are some storylines. There are definitely some storylines. It's one of those weeks in college football, man. You love to see it. I think as a podcast, we have a handful of I told you so's, and we also have a few teams that we might have been wrong on, but a lot more we told you so's than, hey, we might have been wrong about this. So you know how it is, man. We love the freestyle flowing format in this. What do you got? Let's start us off. I think we all know where we need to start off here.
Well, I think there might have been a big game going on in Tuscaloosa, which will just be a conference game in a couple of years. But how about that? How about that? Across the board, we all picked Texas. They showed up and beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, which we have not seen them lose there since Joe Burrow was in college.
No, it's not something that you're used to seeing at all. Is Nick Saban coached Alabama teams going down at Bryant-Denny? It's just something we're not accustomed to. And man, the storylines here, I don't know if it's more about Texas or if it's more about Alabama. For me, it's more about Texas. And going into this game, I mean, we knew that Texas had the matchup to win this game. Like I even said it on our predictions video. I thought Texas had a matchup advantage over Alabama. All offseason long, the storyline was, all right, Quinn Ewers, can he take a step forward? Texas is loaded at wide receiver. Offensive line is going to be improved. Their defensive line apparently was going to be really good. Secondary, maybe a little shaky, but Texas legitimately had a matchup advantage over Alabama. They had the better quarterback. They had the better receivers. And with Alabama, it was, okay, quarterback, maybe the passing game is not going to be great, but Alabama's going to kind of, do this running system, and they're going to try to run the ball down your throat. They're going to have this amazing offensive line. And hey, I kind of bought into it. I thought, okay, Alabama might be able to win a national championship or go to the playoff or win an SEC championship with just playing ground and pound football. And I don't know about you, man, but that offensive line did not look to be as good as we thought it was going to be, or at least what people told us it was going to be. Texas was getting pressure on Milroe all game, man. And Miller made a handful of mistakes, and Texas used that to their advantage.
Dude, Milroe was mid-row, and he's still a good quarterback, but compared to what they've had the last few seasons, from the Bryce Young to, I will say, Mac Jones to the Tua, they've had a great string of quarterbacks, and Milroe simply got outplayed. Quinn came on a revenge tour, and we all know what happened. Had he been healthy last year, they probably win that game. And when he was healthy, he only went 24 for 38 for 349, 3 tutties. And here's the big thing. He threw no interceptions. He hit AD Mitchell for 2 tutties, and AD caught 78 yards worth. And then Xavier Worthy didn't get he had a touchdown reception as well, with 5 receptions, 75 yards. So he hit his main targets. And then Jatavian Sanders needs to get talked about. Dude was an absolute beast. Caught 5 balls for 114 yards. Quinn just spread it out, and they outgained Alabama 454 to 362. I did not get to see any of this live. This was just me catching up through highlights. But from what I saw, I was very, very impressed with Texas. I am kind of nervous on that under. This looks like a team that's easily going to win double-digit games if they keep this constant game plan into Big 12 play.
Yeah, and if you look at the advanced box scores, I was able to get eyes on this one, at least in the first half. Second half, I had to go, but I also watched the second half as well. Again, what I said before, what stood out to me was that Texas was getting pressure on Milroe. That wasn't really the problem for Texas. The problem was, even though they got pressure on Milroe was still making some fantastic plays, getting out of the pocket. He did make a crucial interception there in the first half. And outside of that, I think Milroe actually did have a pretty relatively good day. I mean, he was still valuable for Alabama, but Texas was able to do what it wanted to do, and Quinn dropped some dimes, man. You guys all saw those highlights. That one where he dropped it over the bucket into Worthy's hands. I mean, that was phenomenal. Gorgeous pass.
Absolutely
And
gorgeous.
Xavier Worthy, that man dropped 2 touchdown passes in the end zone. I think Quinn Ewers maybe had a touchdown pass robbed from him because of Worthy, but it's all right.
Oh,
He
yeah.
still made phenomenal catches. But the point was, these two teams, in my opinion, are pretty evenly matched. You look at the advanced box score. Texas post-game win expectancy was 66%. So basically, the advanced box score would suggest that Texas wins this game 2 out of every 3 times. And you look at some stuff that I like to look at because I'm a nerd. Predicted points added. Texas 0.21, Alabama 0.20. Success rate. Texas 36%, Alabama 36%. Explosiveness. Texas 1.57, Alabama 1.60. Like, these two teams were almost dead even. The difference, Alabama had 2 turnovers. Texas had no turnovers, and they got the job done at Bryant-Denny. And storylines, man. It's all about
Alabama
storylines.
was also 5 of 14 on third down, and that's going to tell you the tail of the tape in a lot of these games. Is if you can't move the ball on third down, there's a good chance you're not going to win. And it's funny how the mythos of no assistants can beat Nick Saban has been fairly debunked since the pandemic. I mean, Sark is now, if I'm remembering correctly, now the 3rd assistant to beat Saban. So that shield that was up has continued to just keep coming down. And I'm not going to immediately say the dynasty is over, but it was surprising it's always surprising to see Alabama lose, but to lose by double digits, granted it's 10, it's not like people hear double digits, it's not like it was 17 or 25, but still to lose a game like this at home, night game, is by 10 is possibly telling, as this kind of opens up to the fact that the SEC is not who we thought they were. And I say not who they thought we were in sense of the perception of the league every year. I'm going to jump off into another SEC game, unless you have anything else you want to say about Texas Bama, Shoob.
I do. Just one quick thing about Steve Sarkisian, because I feel like it needs to be worth mentioned. This podcast, man, we give Texas some grief. We like to give Texas teams like Texas and Miami, who we're going to talk about here in just a minute. We give them some grief, but you got to give credit where credit's due, man. And it's not like we didn't see this coming. We saw this coming, but I actually feel really good for Steve Sarkisian. Like, I feel like this really meant a lot to him, and you can kind of just tell that this win really it was deep, man. Like, this meant a lot to Sark, and I was happy for him, man. I'm by no means a Texas fan, by far and away not a Texas fan, but I felt good for Steve Sarkisian.
It was a little frustrating on game day to see the Bama fans booing him. I mean, yeah, he coaches for Texas, but he helped you win a natty in 2020. And I'll just say, when Ed O is back here in 2029, I'm gonna be cheering as loud as I can for that man. So I guess how short memories tend to be, especially if someone moves to the opposing side. But yes, big tip of the cap to Sark, and let's see if they can keep this going and not lay an egg in conference play and actually do what a lot of pundits and a lot of just people are expecting Texas to do this year.
Well, that's the thing. That was going to be my follow-up question, because, this game is really important. We knew that this was going to be a huge measuring stick for both teams. Do you think Texas is going to finish the year undefeated? I don't think so. I think there's still at least another stumbling block or two for this team, because even though they won the big one, and this was huge, huge for them, can they go a full 12-game season? Because we've seen Sarkisian teams kind of sputter out and not be the most, well prepared for 4 quarters at some times.
It's not the best case study, but neither Ole Miss or Texas A&M won the SEC West upon beating Alabama. A little bit of a different story, of course, but needless to say that really, unless you're LSU, beating, and I'm not saying that because of my opinion, I'm just saying that because of like raw data and facts, like usually beating Alabama in the regular season does not necessarily correlate to achieving the goals you've set at the beginning of the year. But we'll see if Texas can buck that trend, go and finish out their Big 12 tenure on the highest note possible.
But they're without a doubt they're the odds-on favorite to win the Big 12 now. Like
Yes,
you just went to
I
Bryant
feel
Denny beat Alabama. You should be the favorite to win the Big 12. I think there's any doubt about that. And once again, before we move on, Saturday Scholars said it multiple times, all three of us. Zane had it as his one and only bold prediction. Texas would beat Alabama and win the Big 12. That's looking pretty good right now.
mm-hmm.
We all picked Texas to win. I used my DraftKings boost to put money on Texas +7 on that spread. Man, the Saturday Scholars saw this one coming. That's all I want to say. I got to toot our own horn a little bit. I was a little surprised to see a little of the Bama pushback from a lot of national media and some people that I respect. But I thought this was on paper an even matchup, and Texas got the best of them. But man, we got only so much time here. But this was such a big game. Let's move over to the other Texas team. Then I think, yeah, I knew we were going that direction.
I mean, so from a pick point, that it sucked missing on this one. But the reality is, I mean, Miami came ready to go. And really, this game even shouldn't have been this close. Miami had multiple special teams mistakes that put A&M in plus territory. In fact, in the red zone even to start a couple drives. And Wegman, he got his. Yeah, I mean, he threw the ball 53 times. So, 336 yards, 2 touchdowns. They did pick him off twice. Evan Stewart, 11 catches, 142 yards. But focusing on the victors, the UM defense forced 3 turnovers. Tyler Van Dyke finally looked like the guy we were expecting, throwing for nearly 375 and 5 touchdowns. I mean, I was very impressed with the U. I mean, they really brought it for a 3:30 game. The crowd was popping, and it was good to see them bounce back from that just horrendous game last year. And I like defense, but last year in College Station was more than defense. Both teams had suffered back-breaking losses. I know, A&M had lost to App State. I forget who Miami had lost to, but they were coming off a bad something bad had happened. What was that?
Middle Tennessee.
Yeah, right. It was the Middle Tennessee game. And so meeting with a cleaner slate and kind of more expectations on the line, I was very impressed with Miami. Maybe they can finally take a step forward and prove me wrong and actually hit their over on the win total.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was about to mention is I think we got to give credit where credit's due. Miami looks a lot better than we expected. And I know we were a little bit down on them compared to most people, I would say. I think we all took the under on their season win total of 7.5.
Zan took their over, I want to say.
He did, didn't he?
I'm fairly certain that he did.
All right. It looks like Zan's coming back to join us here. But anyways, man, like you were saying, Tyler Van Dyke just really impressed me. 30 predicted points added. TVD is back, baby. We were saying it in the group chat during this game. I thought Miami's pass protection looked a lot better. Mario Cristobal, obviously known for developing offensive line. That looked to be a lot more improved, especially against that A&M front 7. And then Tyler Van Dyke, man, he got that trademarked. Tyler Van Dyke, he's Tyler Van Dyke. But there he goes in, coming in hot cover 3 style while we're recording. But yeah, we're talking about A&M Miami, and Tyler Van Dyke is back. So guys, what do you think this says about Miami versus Texas A&M? Because is this more about Miami being good, Mario Cristobal getting over that hump, finally beating A&M in the rematch, or is this more about Jimbo Fisher and Bobby Petrino underachieving some more? What do you think? Is this more about good Miami, or is this more about bad A&M?
I'd say good Miami, just because it's just so early in the season, and they kind of just went vanilla against other Miami and covered. Thank you for that. And I just think the fact that they got up in a big game, showed out offensively, held their own against a very good defensive front. Like we've been saying all throughout the segment, Van Dyke was fantastic. I think that's what we should kind of take away from this more than A&M struggling. I think we need to give A&M a couple conference games before we fully dive into the potential narrative of the Petrino-Jimbo marriage not maybe working out.
I think I'm going to agree with you there. I was watching this game thinking more about how impressed I was with Miami than I was thinking about how bad A&M is. We'll put it that way.
I agree.
So, gentlemen, where do you want to go next?
I want to go Notre Dame, NC State. The Notre Dame offense remains legit. Hartman, four tutties. And this had a delay too. And delays could get really wacky. I've seen it enough in the baseball realm and come, the postseason, but especially for football games, you get so amped, then you got to turn it off to go into the locker room. So the fact that they still came out, four tutties for Hartman. Estime had 2 touchdowns for 134 yards. Holden Stias, who, not gonna lie, he was not on my radar. 115 yards on 4 catches, 2 touchdowns. I mean, they just lit NC State up, who is not a pushover defense by any means. So Notre Dame looks like a real threat early in the season.
They do, and it was relatively close at first. I think Notre Dame pretty much had a stranglehold on this game for the most part, but right there at the end of halftime in the second half, they really pulled away. And, all of Zan's Sam Hartman hype in the offseason seems to be coming true, because Sam Hartman, I know, Zan, you were the highest on him of the 3 of us, I believe, and he's living up to the billing, man. Like we said after week 0, his stock is rising pretty fast.
Yeah, and I mean, like, Notre Dame's a quality team this year. They got a good running game, and they always have good offensive lines. And Sam Hartman was productive with a really bad offensive line at Wake Forest. So I had a feeling if you give him some better protection, he's going to take another step up. So I think he can only get better. That's why I was so high on him. And then I'm not really high on NC State this year in general. I think they're kind of mid. So we'll see how the rest of their season plays out. I was never really in doubt on that game. But yeah, man. I don't know which games you guys have talked about and which ones you haven't up to this point. So I'm going to let you guys get the ball rolling on that. But those are my thoughts on Notre Dame.
Yeah. And we just talked about Texas, Bama, but is there anything you want to chime in about Texas, Bama, though? I mean, given that might be the game of the year potentially in college football.
No, nothing in particular in regard to that game. We were all on top of Texas. We saw it, top 5 team in terms of talent, and they really probably should have beat Alabama last year, provided Ewers doesn't get hurt. We were looking at Alabama this year saying, wow, Alabama's very beatable, take the under. We were all over that as well. Unanimous across the board. We all took Texas. I mean, I don't think anybody on this pod is shocked. So no real thoughts in regard to Texas, except for, I mean, we were all over it.
Yeah, exactly. So, that was my main point. Is the main point was Saturday scholars told you this was going to happen, and it happened.
But did
our
the
records
Saturday
are really
scholars,
good right now.
Did we say that UNC was going to need overtime to beat Appalachian State? I mean, this was an absolute shocker for me. The spread was cooked, so I was very aggravated. It's not enough level for a Gonzo grudge, so we're not going there just yet. But what really surprised me was Drake May had no passing touchdowns in this game. So his Heisman run could be in jeopardy unless he absolutely balls out in conference play, which of course is possible, but I think it's very troubling they had no passing touchdowns against Appalachian State.
He's already got a lot of competition. He's fallen way too far behind the 8 ball to win Heisman, I think.
No, I agree.
I mean, to be fair, North Carolina was able to just run the ball through the Grand Canyon on them, because O'Marion Hampton had 234 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. Drake May had a rushing touchdown, so he did get a touchdown. It was just on the ground. Okay. Caleb Hood had a touchdown. They had 5 rushing touchdowns. So they averaged 7.1 yards per carry. So I don't think they didn't need Drake May to air it out, but I'm sure they could have if they wanted to. But again, guys, the storyline for me here is this is the second year in a row that UNC has had to take Appalachian State to overtime to beat them. And this is the second year in a row that Appalachian State has put up more than 30 points on UNC's defense. And I know I was down on South Carolina.
Program.
It is a quality program. I took them in the team draft, but at the same time, yeah, I watched the highlights from that game. That looked like UNC's defense that we all know and love. That didn't look like the UNC defense that everyone was saying, oh, they looked like they took a step forward against South Carolina. Maybe South Carolina just sucks.
Because UNC's offensive line is probably, I wouldn't be shocked if by the end of the year, in terms of efficiency, they're outside the top 100. They are bad.
Oh, I agree. I think this, if anything, my takeaway from this game is, man, South Carolina might actually be pretty bad.
Good thing we all sat on the unders. I know I put money on the under, so.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we're sitting pretty there. I mean, this could very well have been just a situation where App State really, really cares about this game, and North Carolina is like, I mean, yeah, we somewhat care, but we want to beat Minnesota next week. Not that Minnesota is this super, throw everything out the window, prepare for an opponent, but part of me wonders if UNC was kind of looking ahead.
Yeah, I think main takeaway, let's pump the brakes a little bit on the UNC's defense is taking a big step forward narrative, because I think we need more sample size before we can get to that conclusion. What do we got next, boys? Do we want to stick with this ACC theme? We gave the ACC a lot of flack last year. It was deservedly so, but the conference, it's pulling its weight this year. I got to give credit to it. The conference is looking a lot better than it has in years past.
Yeah, I got one more ACC team I want to talk about. So out in Berkeley, Cal took Auburn to the absolute wire. I did not see that coming. It was just sicko as you can get. You had poor quarterback play. You've already got, Pine and Ashford splitting reps. That's always a successful recipe right there. Cal may be better than I thought, and that's great for them. I mean, I made a living fading Cal, took their under, and if they weren't bad on third down and didn't turn over the ball a bunch, they really would have had a chance to win this game. So just a nice little sicko 9 p.m. treat for everybody after just a wild day of football.
Cal also missed like 2 or 3 field goals. So it really, really screwed them. But no, Cal looks a lot better than anticipated. I can admit that. Auburn doesn't look as good as I anticipated, but I will say that I think Cal, I'm definitely nervous about taking the under on that one. Luckily, I didn't put any personal money on that one, but for the sake of win totals on here, I am nervous for that win total now, because I think they do have the ability to potentially exceed that, because they do have a quality running back, Jaden Ott.
Yeah, you put us onto that, Zane.
Hey, I was telling you, Jaden Ott. I actually said this in win totals when we covered Cal. Jaden Ott is such a beast that next year he'll be in a USC Trojan uniform.
That's right. I remember that now.
You did say that. And you might very well be right about that.
And I'll say that, I mean, I think I'm starting to realize that the bottom of the Pac-12 is not as atrocious as it was last year, which is a perfect segue into the Colorado Fighting Deons. Here they are again, 2-0. I absolutely missed on this win total. So, Dion, I am sorry for not believing.
I'm on the over, so.
Yep. Zan's just killing it with the spreads, killing it with win totals.
Yeah, Zan is the biggest winner of the first 2 weeks of the season for sure. Based on
all good things have to come to an end. Everything averages out. So I'm down for some. I'm sure I'm going to get creamed in one of these weeks, but right now I'm riding high on that mountaintop.
Well, I think Nebraska wishes they could even dream or say what you just said, Zan, because Jeff Sims ain't it, Chief. 9 of 15 for 106. I think I could probably do that. Threw a pick. He did run for touchdowns, and that's nifty. And Gabe Urban was half decent on the ground, but outside of that, I mean, it's like Scott Frost 2.0, even though I still am high on Matt Rule long term. But man, Colorado just took him to the shed.
I think with Jeff Sims, Jeff Sims is a great athlete. He's not a great quarterback. You got to move him to slot receiver or running back. He's not going to be any good to you as a quarterback. That was our biggest criticism of him at Georgia Tech, is he's an elite runner, but hey, can you throw a damn pass? The evidence is there. He still can't throw a pass to his own team. So we'll see, man. With Nebraska, luckily, it's kind of not very high expectations this year. And I believe we were sitting on the under for Nebraska, or at least I was.
Oh, yeah.
I believe. So
yes, we were.
All is well in the world. Nebraska Cornhuskers, I think they're in a good situation with Matt Rule. Just it's not going to be done this year.
Well, we all know Nebraska fans have unlimited patience, so I think they just gotta. They're used to it at this point. But I feel bad for Nebraska fans. But like I said, they're used to it. They're numb to it. But guys, to me, so I think this game showed a lot of warning signs for Colorado that are ahead potentially, because I think there are definitely certain style of teams that could probably hand it to Colorado at this point. Teams like Oregon State that are very physical on the lines of scrimmage. I think a team like Oregon State, I don't know what that spread would be in a few weeks whenever they play each other. I can't even know if they do play each other. I think they do. But you get my point. Teams like that, I think, are going to beat up on Colorado. Post-game win expectancy here, guys. Any quick guess what the post-game win expectancy was for Colorado, Nebraska? It's very surprising.
65% Colorado?
I'll say 80.
Well, Zan was right on the money with the 65%, but it was for the wrong team.
Wow.
Nebraska had 4. Keep in mind, guys, Nebraska had 4 turnovers. It was a 4-1 turnover margin. Nebraska did move the ball a bit. Colorado could not run worth a you-know-what, man. They only averaged 1.8 yards per rush. Colorado could not run. Now, the passing game was great, granted, but I think warning signs ahead for Colorado. If they can't run the ball, I don't care how good Shedeur in this passing game is, like, teams are going to adjust. I just think this is your first warning. It's looking good, but they did benefit from a lot of turnovers. So I think this score is a little bit more lopsided than it should have been.
And they do play Oregon State, by the way.
That's right. That's what I thought. Yeah, I don't know what the spread will be, but I'm going to take Oregon State on that spread. Not hating on Colorado. I want to see Colorado do well, but that's just predictive of what's to come, in my opinion.
Speaking of the Beavs, let's talk about their arch rival. So it's fairly established on the pod at this point that Texas Tech was an absolute L, and I'm going to have to live that down for the next 5 years. They absolutely sold me. This is my first grudge. You were up 9 points in this game, and Tyler Shough, as great as he played, he threw 3 interceptions, including the one that cost me the spread. I mean, what the heck are we doing, Texas Tech? They cannot finish. I mean, luckily, you could still conceptually do well in Big 12 play. It's not like they were a legitimate national title contender. But it was just so frustrating when I watched the highlights to see that Texas Tech was in a position to potentially kick a game-winning field goal after blowing a 9-point lead at home. That aside, Oregon, great job. Bo Nix, who I used to kind of rag on back in his Auburn days, but I've come to like him more since he went out west. He threw for 359, 2 touchdowns. He was elusive. They converted like 1,000,000 third downs. Troy Franklin, 100 yards receiving, 103 to be exact, and a touchdown. So Oregon, this is a game. This is a kind of win that teams to make national championship runs, this is what you put in your pocket. This is going to make Oregon better in the long run. And for Texas Tech, I am really hoping that everything doesn't implode on each other and that it doesn't end up 5-7 after losing a game like this early.
Yeah, man. Red Raiders maybe taking L's, but at least they got that 5-star Micah Hudson today.
That's right.
And I will say, I'm not even shocked by that. It's been rumored that he was going to Tech for like 3 months now. Rumor is it was between Texas Tech and Texas, and both teams had a really fat NIL deal for him. And Texas Tech just happened to have a little bit of a bigger bag this time around because, Texas is already kind of flinging it to other players. Texas Tech's like, hey, let's focus it on this player. So good for Tech. We'll see if it pans out for him. Not all 5 stars pan out, but 5 stars usually give you the best chance of having elite talent at that position. So we will see. Certainly Tech is moving in the right direction despite having a very lackluster start to their season. So I think a lot of Tech fans are saying switch quarterbacks. But like they're saying Baron Morton, get him out there.
That was going to be my point was I think Tyler Shough did so many good things in this game, but he also did so many bad things in this game. 3 interceptions, I believe 2 fumbles, at least 1.
Not that that's any better, but really 2 picks because the last was a Hail Mary. But yeah, point is he turned the ball into your correct shoot.
Point is 3 to 4 turnovers, if I'm not mistaken. And they were bad turnovers or really bad times. Like if you cut those turnovers down in half, I think Tech would have won this game. I think Tech was right there, but like you said, if you're Oregon, I'd be a little concerned about the defense because the defense didn't look the sharpest. But yeah, Troy Franklin, man, that dude is him. Like I can't wait to see this team go into Pac-12 play. Oregon also didn't really run the ball as well as you would think they should have. So I think the takeaway is if you're Oregon, you're happy to get this dub. It's probably going to look good on your resume. If you're Texas Tech, Shough, I don't know. He might not be the answer, but you can't have like 4 turnovers and expect to beat good teams like Oregon. But hey, man, they have time to turn it around in Big 12 play. It's not like Tech was, I don't know, maybe some Tech fans were thinking they'd go to the playoff, but realistically, Tech still has Big 12 conference play ahead of them.
And I mean, we've seen like Utah have these slow starts, and it's funny because that's the next team I want to talk about. And then look, they went and won the Pac-12. Speaking of a future Big 12 matchup, though, with Utah, I was surprised with this one. I wasn't surprised Utah won, but I was surprised that Baylor even made this competitive. Sawyer Robertson was serviceable, but he threw 2 picks, which ended up being a big difference. And Baylor could not move the ball on third down. They were third of 11. And I mean, seeing the last play, I think what Baylor was doing, and for context, folks, Utah had the ball tied game. They're in the red zone. You're basically cooked here. And I think what happened is Baylor tackled the running back and then said, oh, let's let him score so we have a chance to maybe come back. And so then Utah ran some time off and scored. But I think the bigger storyline from this, fellas, is what this is Utah offense. What is going on? I mean, they need Cam Rising to get back in here soon because they just had not even decent QB play today. I'm almost shocked
terrible
that they
QB
did
play.
what they did, and I'll give y'all a chance to chime in.
Well, as a Gator fan, I'm sitting here saying, like, did Bryson Barnes like use his all his magic cards on us, and then he just ran out of them?
Maybe the Gators are just that bad,
or the Gators are just that bad. I mean, this was this was a little surprising.
I mean, I'm stunned that it didn't cover. I mean, there's a lot. It could have been the early start. It could have been they overlooked Baylor. I mean, we just don't know what's going on in their heads in that locker room. But
Utah
if they don't get
score 2 touchdowns late in the fourth quarter to win this game. It wasn't like Utah controlled the game. Like Baylor had them on the ropes, and Utah had to squeak it out the last second, quite literally. This is one of those.
If Baylor doesn't throw that interception, if Sawyer Robertson doesn't throw that interception, the game goes to OT. But either way, you could tell in the fourth quarter the Baylor defense was exhausted. Utah was having their way with them, just running it down their throat because they knew Baylor was exhausted. So Utah said, "Okay, we're going to run the clock. We're going to score this. We're going to score the ball." But yeah, very interesting. The fact that we're sitting here complaining about Utah's quarterback play, yet they're 2-0. So just speaks volumes about how quality of a team they are. And I was a little bit concerned about their win total being at 8, but I'm thinking they've got a really good shot to exceed that win total now with their performance in non-con. So, yeah, I mean, Utah, never bet against Kyle Whittingham. I think that's the moral of the story here.
Yeah, they're 2-0 with 2 good non-con wins, and they did it without their starting quarterback, who was also their best player. So that's pretty good.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Shu, because as I came to find out, having your starting quarterback is very important. It's not grudge territory, so I'm sorry. But if I had known that Michael Pratt wasn't playing, I would have taken Ole Miss all day.
Yep.
But instead, Willie Fritz is like, no, I remember what you did last year, Zach, so I'm going to make sure I don't tell anybody anything until kickoff. And let me calm it down. Tulane still played their butts off, and this game was still competitive. It's not like they got blown out of the water without Pratt, but it is tough knowing that if he plays, there's a very, very good possibility that the Green Wave do win this game. And they shut down Quinshon Junkins. He went for 48 yards. That's an awesome effort by Tulane. And just how that game ended was rough from a spread perspective. And I think that game kind of says more about Ole Miss maybe than Tulane, because Tulane, whatever Fritz's reasons were, maybe he wants to win another American title. I don't blame him. Keep Pratt out. We've seen data that shows, you could lose to an SEC team, go 11-1, win your conference. You're still going to go to a New Year's Six, so Ole Miss struggling against Tulane, especially in the trenches, has me concerned, especially as someone who took their over, on how they're going to fare when they really go up against some big boys in conference play.
I got eyes on this one. Go ahead.
I like seeing Ole Miss fans freaking out about it on Twitter. They're like, "Man, this team is trash. We're struggling with G5 Tulane." Because most people don't realize that Tulane is the best team in all of G5. Most people just assume if you're not in a Power 5 conference, you automatically by default are terrible at playing football and might as well be playing with a stick in the corner. But I mean, I think it's interesting because Ole Miss is a very quality team, but I wish Pratt was playing because I think it really would. Because Tulane played really well for not having Pratt. Let me just say that.
Oh yeah,
they're very well coached.
I guess Ole Miss fans didn't realize that Tulane beat the Big 12 champion Kansas State last year, and they beat the Heisman Trophy winner Caleb Williams and USC last year. Like,
I
yeah,
just saw Ole Miss
that
fans saying
team that
like,
they
"Oh
almost
man,
lost
we
to.
can't. We're struggling with Tulane."
Come on, guys. Don't be casuals. Don't be like that, Ole Miss fans. Come on now. No, I reiterate everything you guys were saying. I got eyes on this one from start to finish. I was pretty invested in this from a betting standpoint, too. Kai Horton, at the first quarter, I was like, oh my God, this dude is like, he's Michael Pratt 2.0 coming off the bench. And then after that, Ole Miss made some adjustments, and Horton was honestly pretty bad from there on out. In my opinion, I think of this as the takeaways is good for both teams. If you're an Ole Miss fan, you should be happy about the way that your team pulled this one out, because I think they did a good job of making adjustments for Kai Horton after the first quarter, and they really shut down Tulane's passing game. And again, it's like this was only a touchdown spread. Like, you weren't going to blow out this team. They're too well coached. It was at Tulane. And if you're Tulane, I mean, the fact that you hung in there with a ranked SEC team, even with your backup quarterback, I think is pretty good. And like you guys said, the final score was not indicative. Ole Miss got a garbage time fumble recovery to make it look a lot more lopsided. It really should have been a one-score game. It really should have been the final. And Tulane's defensive line is legit, guys. Like, holy crap. I know we didn't cover G5 win totals, but that's like a top 25, like P5 level D line. Like, Ole Miss couldn't run for anything. Like Gonzo said, they shut down Judkins. Like, Dart was getting smacked around there sometimes. Like, I was very impressed. I wouldn't be surprised if Tulane has a handful of guys.
Tulane's
drafted.
a P5 level team. If you park Tulane over in the Big 12 or the ACC, they're going to finish in the top half. I mean, like, easily. They're very quality team.
Yeah, it's one of those things, man. We got robbed of not seeing Michael Pratt out there, because it would have been a 50-50 coin flip game. Put it that way.
And speaking of robbery, here's another game where we lost both quarterbacks. Well, that was the end result. UCF Boise State, the Knights took this one last year. And then, whenever you're scheduling non-con against Boise State, unless you're Washington this year, you are playing with fire. And I did not realize, what I realized at first was, oh man, UCF didn't cover. Dang. I didn't realize they needed a walk-off field goal to win this one. And they're lucky Taylon Green got hurt, because they probably outright lose. And what's sad from this game as a college football fan, Taylon Green gets hurt. I don't know how severe it is. I don't think it's too bad. But then UCF with the Punic victory. You win, you beat Boise State on the road, yay. But you lose John Reese Plumlee for a few weeks, and you got Kansas State coming up in 2 weeks. So I want to say Kansas State's the opener. There's no shot. There was no shot they beat that team without him playing. And it was kind of going to be a long shot if he was playing. So I think UCF is going to be in some trouble, and that is not what you want starting off a new era in a new conference that is a Power 5 conference.
That was the biggest concern for UCF. We set on win totals. Obviously, John Reese Plumlee, you're going to run a lot. That's great, but you're more susceptible to get hurt. And unlike last year, UCF had Mikey Keene as the backup. He's at Fresno now. You don't have a good backup quarterback. We said if John Reese Plumlee gets hurt, this team might be screwed. And look what's happened. And you're right, Gonzo. They got Kansas State in 2 weeks, and it's at Kansas State. That's going to be a pretty humbling game, I think, for UCF.
Yeah, I saw that play. He took a hit as he was sliding down and hyperextended his knee. So we'll see. Because, I mean, your knees are pretty important for mobile quarterbacks. So we'll see how that one works out for him. Did they say what the nature of the injury is? How long he's out for?
A few weeks. So, I mean, if we're going by what few means, I mean, that sounds like 3. I would probably not try to rush him back for K-State. I just don't think you want to reintroduce him with that defense waiting for you.
No, they got Villanova next week. They got Nova at home, and it ain't basketball, so I think they should be good. But is he going to be 100% in 2 weeks? Even if he can play, he's probably not even.
I highly doubt it.
Sorry, UCF fans, it's not looking too great for your Big 12 opener.
And again, that was my concern. And I do not like doing things based on injury, but now that under looks fairly favorable, unfortunately, because he is a huge part of their offense, and they just don't have the quarterback depth to survive something like this. So I hope he's back and healthy. I hope it's not super serious. But
I did want to say this game, my takeaway from this game was the team that Boise played last week. And look how badly Boise got beat by the team they played last week. And that team was Washington. This podcast was as high as Washington as anyone else. And I just want to say, so far through week 2 of the season, Washington has the highest overall success rate, play for play, down for down, of anybody in college football. And I know they played Boise State and Tulsa. We don't have to talk about those games themselves, but Washington's looking pretty good, boys. Penix is looking like an early Heisman contender, just as we said.
I mean, the only one standing in their way is USC for the playoff, and USC's defense isn't really that great still. I think Washington's going to win the Pac-12, provided they stay healthy, of course.
No, I mean, I agree. That's just an absolutely electric offense, and it'd be really fun to see them make it back into the playoff and give us a little shakeup from the usual chalk.
You guys probably going to be surprised by that spread against Michigan State this week. We're going to pick that one in a little bit, but I kind of have
like 18 or something like that.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but whatever it is, it's free money.
It was like 18. It was something like that when I looked.
I don't want to derail us, but things could get, I mean, outside of what, if the players check out, oh my goodness. It can get very dicey, but we'll save that for a later time. I do want to talk about a game that we all love, and it's the exact inverse of what Washington has been doing these last couple of weeks. The Cy-Hawk Trophy. You got to love
is the same thing every damn year.
It was.
It is. Iowa always wins it, and Iowa always finds a way to score some crazy touchdown with their defense, which they once again scored a defensive touchdown in this game.
Of course.
It's insane.
And of course, Iowa won by, guess what? 1 touchdown.
Yep.
Of course.
Dude, it's insane. Like, if there's such thing, if you're an atheist, I think it's time to start believing in God, because if there's a God, like, he makes sure that this game is the exact same thing every single year in the most bizarre way.
No, I mean, it has, what's crazy is Iowa, quote unquote, controlled this game, but it just never feels like it because nobody scores. I mean, everything was right. The under was there, the defensive touchdown. I mean, Iowa State getting their hearts ripped out. I saw the game-winning play was Iowa State on 4th and 2 runs like a toss, and Iowa just blew it up, and the game was over. And I'm like, that's what you do on 4th and 2? You try to run the ball?
I'm telling you, man, it's that voodoo. It's that Iowa voodoo. It's the black magic, like we were talking about last year. They do black magic in the locker room before the game, and they definitely put in that little extra juice into that black magic whenever they play Iowa State. It is something else, man. Iowa State fans, get back to normal. Oh, we lost Zan, I think.
He couldn't handle it. I don't blame him.
Iowa voodoo kicked Zan out. We start talking about Iowa State, and Zan magically disappears, man. They cast some spells, man, they cast some spells, man, in Kinnick. I don't know what they got, some underground like lab or something down there. Like, what is going on?
Dude, it validates again what we said. I mean, like, the Big Ten West is weak. So Iowa can continue to use this style of play to win a division title. And Wisconsin, I mean, let's get into it. I knew when I made that pick, I was nervous. And Washington State, Cam Ward, man, I mean, good for both them and Oregon State. They've been left out of the Great Migration into, Big Ten and Big 12 land. And I think they both have remained very attractive options for a conference to pick up. And I'm not trying to bring up conference realignment, but I'm more so just alluding to the fact that Wisco goes out, loses a hard-fought game to Washington State, bringing it back to Big Ten. And I mean, shoot, Iowa's going to win the division. Let's just accept it right now. And they're going to hit that over, most likely, with how those teams are.
I would agree. So this is where I get to toot my own horn, because I think I was the only down man on Wisconsin in this podcast. I thought,
yes, you were.
Pretty much everything I've said about them so far is playing out. I thought that Tanner Mordecai still had some things to prove to me at the Power 5 level. He hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been great by any means. And I thought that there would be a little bit of a period where Wisconsin would have to go through some struggles to try to figure things out. And we saw early in the year, week 2, you're going to Pullman. Like, that just screamed trap game to me. And by the way, Washington State, yeah, I know they lost a couple of their better players in the transfer portal, like Francis Malgoa, who left to Miami. They still got a good defense. They still have pretty good offensive skill position players. They have Cam Ward, who's got another year under his belt after last year. And Cam Ward looks like an improved player. I know Wazoo's offensive line isn't that great, but they have a really good coaching staff out there in Pullman. And I'd say coaching won this game. I really liked Washington State here, and Cam Ward played well. Washington State did what they needed to do. And for the second year in a row, they've beaten the Badgers. They sweep the head-to-head home-on-home series, which is, for Washington State, that's pretty good for that program.
No, I mean, that's an absolute tip of the cap. That's one I don't mind missing on. I've always liked Wazoo, and I was happy to see them, do well again, especially given just what is going on all around them.
Now, I will say, to be fair, because I have to call things like I see it, turnover margin in this game, Wisconsin had 3 turnovers, Wazoo had none. So for sure, Wisconsin, I think if you replay this game, they don't turn the ball over, I think Wisconsin could have beaten them like they did last year. Last year's the same exact story. Wisconsin turned the ball over a ton, and it was kind of a lucky win for Wazoo. So it's same story 2 years in a row, but at the end of the day, the final score is what matters. Post-game win expectancy, believe it or not, still says Wazoo should have won this game 91% of the time. So, wow. So maybe the turnovers weren't really a luck factor for Wazoo this year, but just how it goes, man. You gotta be on your game, man. You can't go to Pullman, especially this year when the Pac-12 is doing so well. Washington State's kind of like that middle team in the Pac-12. That's kind of like, are they going to be in the bad group? Are they going to be in the good group? I'm leaning more towards the good group so far. And Colorado, you can put them more towards the good group. There's some other games too, man. There's another team that I think maybe they're not so bad. This is a game that was flying under the radar. I'm thinking going to Stark Vegas here. Little SEC Pac-12. Mississippi State, you had this game, you had them on the ropes, and then Arizona somehow sent this to overtime. I didn't get eyes on this game, but this was one of those just weird games that I feel like just kind of slept through the cracks, including for us, which is pretty hard to do. But
I think it was the timing. You were at, and I want to hear about it. You were at the Pokes ASU game, and I was coming back from the LSU game. So my takeaway though is, I mean, I don't like to make assumptions based off the box score completely, but I know we talked about drunk on Delora, last year. But was he drunk playing this game? I mean,
yeah, dude, 4 picks.
4 picks, 5 turnovers. And the fact you still went to overtime is impressive, but
against Mississippi State too.
I think it's a bigger indictment on State than Zona. I mean, this team, if they play a Leach team, I mean, this is a 3 touchdown victory easily, but I really think that offensive, I don't know if they'll be able to even make that change, offensively. I really believe that Zach Arnett is a lame duck hire, because you just, from a PR perspective, you can't go out and do a coaching search after one of the most beloved coaches, your head coach, passes away like he did. So I think Arnett is just a lame duck, and I think they'll work out an agreement where he'll resign or something, and then they'll actually conduct a search to, heck, maybe you bring Dan Mullen back. I don't know, but rebrand what Miss State wants to be. And hey, they won the game, so that's great to them. But I do think it's concerning that Arizona, a team I'm personally not high on this year, took you to OT in your house, even with their starting quarterback throwing 4 interceptions.
2 things. Actually, I'll make this 3 things. 1, success rate in this game. Arizona, 46%, Miss State, 42%. Down for down, Arizona's a little bit better. 2, is Mississippi State the type of program that can pull a Mike Elko or a Jonathan Smith or a Willie Fritz? Because to me, that's the big 3 right there. That's the big 3. If I want to get an edge on the competition, I hire one of those 3.
I think that has to do is if jobs like Michigan State legitimately open up and kind of what's happening.
I think the other
around.
MSU is probably a better job than
Imagine you go to the wrong MSU. I thought I was going to Michigan State. Nah, buddy, here's some cowbells. You're coming on down to Starkville.
Yeah,
but my lean is no.
I agree, but this one was again didn't get eyes on this one. Oh, here's my third point. Tatora McMillan, guys, him.
Yeah,
he's him.
Yeah,
5 stars. See, this is what I like when 5 stars go to places that you don't normally go, and they really stand out when they're true freshmen and true sophomore like McMillan. And it's just I like to see that. Just need more diversity of recruiting talent. That's all I want to see.
Hopefully they
Arizona's got another 5-star coming in.
They do. Big 12, man. The Big 12 was the conference of 3 stars. Now it's going to be the conference of 3 stars with a sprinkle of 5 stars at a few programs in the coming
years. A handful of 5 stars per 4 years,
I think both the Arizona schools are in a good spot as they make the conference switch. And I'd like to pull both of you now.
I'd argue that's debatable.
ASU, Oregon State, at least Arizona State, I think will be in a good position. Arizona, maybe the jury's out, but
we'll put it this way. Yeah, ASU, I think in the short term, I don't think they're in a good position, but in the long term, there is obviously big potential upside. In the short term, I was at that game, by the way, for those of you just curious, was attending that game, sat in the OSU section with my dad and my girlfriend. So I got to see this one live. So my big takeaway from this game was, man, I don't know what the hell Mike Gundy is doing. It was funny texting Alex and going on OSU Twitter and seeing what everyone was saying, like as I was watching things live. But this is my takeaway. One, both teams, the offensive lines were horrible. Oklahoma State's offensive line is not very good. Arizona State's offensive line is not very good at all. Jaden Rashada, man, the dude is just a true freshman. He's got some work to do. I know that it's going to take some time there, but he's a 5-star recruit. I know they want to get Pine healthy, but Arizona State definitely has a ways to go, in my opinion, under Kenny Dillingham. They're going to have to be patient there, especially when they go into the Big 12 next year. But as far as Oklahoma State, I don't know about you, Zan, but my opinion on this game, I think Mike Gundy literally had a game plan of, we're going to play quarterback. We're going to play this quarterback for this amount of series. Then we're going to play this quarterback for this amount of series. Then we're going to play this quarterback for this amount of series. Regardless of what happens, if we're winning by 40, if we're losing by 40, we're going to do this no matter what happens. And Ollie Gordon, we're going to give him 2 carries in the first half. And no matter what he does, we're just going to strong arm him and blue ball him until the second half, and then blue ball him again, just regardless of what happens.
You're right about one of those things. Legitimately, the first thing that you mentioned about the quarterbacks is exactly what Gundy said he was doing in his presser. Everyone gets a finite amount of series regardless of what's going on, because he wants to give them equal play. It's suspected, because the rotation for what they did, that the starter for the next game will be Gunnar Gundy, because it seems like they're changing up the rotation. Whoever starts, then whoever comes out second, and then whoever comes out third, and then they rotate it. So everyone thinks Gunnar Gundy is going to come out first against South Bama and play the first quarter.
See, this is hilarious to me. Like this isn't like baseball. Like Gundy's like got like a pitching staff right now, and he's like, all right, we're gonna throw this guy for game 1. We're gonna throw him for game 2.
That's what's funny, actually. So an OSU fan, when Rangel came in for the fourth quarter and OSU ended up winning the game, an OSU fan commented, "So does Rangel get to save that?"
I mean, it's one thing if you got Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer and then like Aaron Nola as your top 3, but I wouldn't say that what Oklahoma State has is that rotation there. But man, yeah, it's something else. Tell you what, the Gundy antics are something else.
I get how non-con is not appealing for like most casual fans, but I didn't realize how it's now like NFL preseason level where we're working out all the strings of quarterback, just getting everybody in.
No, that's an OSU thing. That's not anyone else thing. That is an Oklahoma State Mike Gundy thing.
UCLA's kind of messing around with that too, though. So it's here and there with some other schools kind of tinkering.
Yeah, Dante Moore, Colin Schlee, Garbers.
Yeah, but one of them is a 5-star recruit, and the other one's proven. I don't think any of these guys are proven besides 1 year of Bowman. or like 2 games of Bowman like 5 years ago when we were all in undergrad still. But anyways, yeah, I think biggest takeaway for me is I didn't really think either of these two teams are very good, to be honest. Oklahoma State obviously a little bit better than Arizona State, but I don't expect much from Arizona State in Pac-12 play. I think they're probably going to be one of the worst 2 or 3 teams in the Pac-12 now. And then as far as Oklahoma State, I mean, it's too early to tell, man, with all this jumbling and moving pieces they got going on. But it was one of those games where if you're an Oklahoma State fan, it was a really weird win. Like, you're happy you won, but you're also like, what the hell did I just watch? It was one of those feelings. But anyhow, gentlemen, where do you want to go next?
How about we kick it across and let's talk about how SMU kept the game with OU competitive, but OU still covered. That just baffled me. And SMU, they're a dang good team. Oh man,
OU's a quality team this year. OU's a lot better than expected. They've definitely taken a step forward this year.
That ACC infusion has just got them ready to go and just go on a tear. It was a 3-point game in the fourth out in Norman. That's crazy. And I still think, here, ready for this, y'all. So, SMU, kind of what you'd expect, 2 turnovers, playing OU. They were 4-16 on third down, but they outpassed Oklahoma 250-176. And even though Dylan Gabriel threw 4 touchdowns, I really think it's only a matter of time until this becomes Jackson Arnold's team this year.
Now, Dylan Gabriel's playing a little too well for Jackson Arnold, I think, to take over right now. But I will say, on the other end, Preston Stone is a pretty good quarterback. He was actually highly rated. He was almost a 5-star, I believe. I believe he was like a 96th grade 4-star or something like that. So SMU has got themselves a pretty good quarterback. So they're definitely in a good position this year. I had them in the team draft. I believe their line was 8.5, and I still think they're going to hit 8 or 9 wins. Feel pretty good about SMU despite the loss. They did keep up with OU, but OU is significantly improved this year. Granted, I will say Arkansas State is awful.
They got worse.
Did you see how bad Arkansas State lost last week?
They're terrible.
I think I was about to mention that. I think if you're an OU fan, 73 to nothing looks really great, but after seeing what Memphis did to them,
was it like 40
pump the brakes. Yeah, you got to pump the brakes here. We still need to see more out of the Sooners, but anyhow, we're going a little bit over an hour now, but just to run through quick of these teams. Yeah, I was going to say there's just a handful of games left that we want to touch on really quickly. How about Pitt and Cincy? If you know, you know.
Emory Jones.
If you know, you know, man.
Emory Jones actually good now? Is he good at football now? You know, Emory Jones is in the top 10 in touchdown passes right now.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I think he's number 7.
Well, I got something to say about this. Zane and I, we're definitely not the highest on the Scott Satterfield hire, Hot Cedarfield. Well, that seat's pretty cool because I got to say, man, Cincinnati actually looked like a pretty well-coached team to me. And granted, I only saw highlights from this, but Pitt got out-coached. Like, I was impressed by what Cincinnati was doing. Cincinnati's defensive line, we knew Cincinnati's D-line was legit. They looked pretty good, man. And Phil Dracovic, I'm a big Dracovic guy. I know Zan is not. Once again, stat line did not look good for him at all. But Dracovic, in the face of pressure, did throw a couple nice dimes to Keanu Mumfield. But other than that, it was ugly for Pitt. And yeah, I think Cincy is one of those teams that we were all down on, I believe, and we're probably eating some crow on them. They look like a bowl team to me, at least.
Yeah, it's possible. We'll see when they get in the Big 12 play. But as someone who took the Pitt on there, I was not too upset to see the Panthers fall, especially when some folks thought it was ludicrous to say that Pitt wasn't going to make a bowl game and that Dracovic was so much better than Slovis. And we'll see. We'll see after this West Virginia game if some of those folks still have those opinions, and I respect all opinions. But hey, right now it definitely looks like Pitt's gonna have to grind it out if they want to make a bowl game, and we'll see because the ACC is the ACC. But
the ACC is looking a lot tougher this year.
I respect all opinions, including wrong ones.
Yes,
exactly.
And speaking of Big 12, let me just hit the Sunflower State real quick. KU got the dub. Even though Illinois scared me in that second half, but great win for them.
Jalen Daniels looked really good coming out.
He looked really good. Devin Neal, buck 20, 2 tutties. So it's good to see KU keeping that momentum going.
Andy Kotelnicki,
And
offensive coordinator for Kansas.
Oh yeah, it's only a matter of time.
He's a gem, man. Terrific coaching
And then,
staff.
Kansas State learned from the Tulane debacle and beat the brakes off Troy. I took Troy to cover and was very impressed with K-State. Will Howard, 5 total touchdowns.
Kansas State's really good. Troy is no scrub team. They smacked Troy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel really good having them in the team draft. I mean, they are just running on all cylinders right now. And
they lost a lot from their team last year. That just tells you how well coached they are. They lost so much on their defense, and their defense is still really good.
No, I mean, it's interesting how the state of Kansas just has 2 really fantastic coaches with Leopold and Kleiman.
We go a quick fire here back into the ACC because I think there's some noteworthy games to hit on real quick. Wake Forest beat Vandy 36-20. A lot of people thought Vandy potentially could be a factor in this game, and I think they did play a little bit better than the score suggested, but that was probably a big swing game for win totals. Wake Forest.
Griffiths, baby.
Mitch Griffiths, my guy. Definitely not as good as Sam Hartman. I was on drugs during win total, ACC win totals, drugs, but that's all right.
we respect all opinions.
It's all right. That one was I was on drugs during ACC win totals, so we can just omit those results.
But is he better than JT Daniels, who might get Dana Holgerson fired? Houston, really? How do you lose to Rice? I mean, they were getting whipped.
They were down 28-0.
I mean, JT Daniels, he's a G5 5-star, man. He just seemed to be down at the G5 level, and he absolutely cooked Houston. And
I'm not gonna tell you. I know Gonzo grudges are a Gonzo thing, but I have a little bit of a grudge with that game as someone who took the Houston over, because that's one of those games after Houston wins in week 1. That's one of those games you expect to get. And I'm like, I was looking at it saying, wow, Houston's 2-0. This overlook looks amazing. They go off and lose to freaking Rice. And now I don't know what to think of this team anymore.
Is Houston the worst team in the Big 12? Or is it too early to say?
Too early to say.
Well, I have a handful of Shooby Snacks to give out. One, I had to give one out to Steve Sarkisian. I forgot to mention. I kind of already gave him a de facto Shooby Snack. Got to give one to Steve Sarkisian. 2, I got to give one to Lane Kiffin because, like I didn't mention the Tulane game, even though I was rooting for Tulane the whole time, I showed my cards there, my biases in that game. But Lane Kiffin made some really good 4th down decisions, and like he helped play into why Ole Miss won this game, and I got to respect it. Spencer Sanders, I know, is probably not the biggest fan of Lane Kiffin, but I'm a fan of his 4th down decision making. And number 3, as someone who took Virginia Tech under 5.5 wins and was pretty heavily invested in that Vautech under, I got to give a big thank you to Purdue for winning a 1-score game on the road in Blacksburg against Virginia Tech. And
I took the dang over on that one.
Putting a little ice on the AC.
VTech looks better than I think they look better than expected. Still.
Well, let's do a quick fire in the state of Virginia really quick because there's a little bit of yikes here. We got Virginia Tech losing to Purdue. We had UVA losing to James Madison, which I guess is not surprising. Right, yeah. I mean, we were not surprised by that. It was a back and forth game, but UVA losing to JMU.
UVA was up 2 touchdowns late. I don't know how they lost.
Yeah. And
you got to can him. This is going in the wrong direction really, really fast. And no recruiting. Nothing's going to change that. Like SMU will come in there and beat Virginia by 40. You need to hit the reset button. You need to get Bronco Mendenhall out of retirement. You got to do something because Tony Elliott is not it, Chief.
Shout out to Boston College for playing an ESPN Instant Classic against Holy Cross. Coming through there with a 3-point win.
Under's looking amazing for me on that, boys.
Zan nailed that. That over's cooked.
Yeah,
they suck.
Yeah, guys, I was drunk during the ACC win totals, so
they're terrible. FSU's going to beat them by 56.
Syracuse very quietly looking pretty good in the analytics department. Granted, small sample size, but Syracuse might be still a pleasant surprise 2 years in a row. Shout out to them. Man. Some quick other games here. Georgia Southern over UAB. That's good for my win totals. Personal money on UAB under. Ohio
AB,
went
baby.
into Boca Raton and beat FAU. Curtis Rourke did play. He did throw 2 picks in this game. I don't know if he's 100%, but Ohio seems to be back. They got the train back on the track, so to speak. And they got a good non-conference win against FAU on the road. FAU definitely, we assume, is one of the better teams in the American this year. And then Missouri, we're all high on Missouri this year, boys, but man, they struggled against Middle Tennessee. But I don't know. I guess maybe struggling against Middle Tennessee isn't the worst thing in the world, because Middle Tennessee beat Miami last year.
Well, you know why? You know who they play next week.
They play Kansas State. We're going to pick that game. Yeah, that could very well be the case. But boy, they really were that F around meter was pretty high, and they got lucky they didn't find out. Put it that way.
I will tell you, like, I took Ohio State to cover this week against Western Kentucky. I'm nervous as can be, because part of me thinks they're going to sell and just BS this game because Notre Dame is the upcoming week.
You want to talk about
very
teams?
Real.
You want to talk about teams that are selling? Fresno State took Eastern Washington into double overtime.
Yeah,
you go on the road and you beat a Power 5 team in Purdue. Then you go and barely beat an FCS team in double overtime. And now they're probably going to go on the road to beat another Power 5 team because they play Arizona State this week.
Yeah,
and they're favored against Arizona State. So Fresno State's really selling. They are really selling, man.
Oh.
And
Uncle Boomer, strong team.
Yeah, and then my last shout out has got to go to Rutgers, 36-7 over Temple.
That's right, baby.
Hashtag Rutgers over by October.
We're getting there.
Rutgers is the over by October this year. I'm telling you, 2-0, go off to a good start.
That's huge, though. If you had lost to Temple, that's just hard to come back from to hit this total. So I'm happy they took care of business.
But other than that, boys, any other final games you want to mention here? We shot across the board here. I mean, we go in depth. We like to talk about just about everybody here.
Got one more, and this is the other Gonzo grudge. North Texas, how do you lose to FIU? They're not good. They had 5 passing yards against La Tech, and you get outgained 5. You outgained them, 548 to 514, and you let Keyshawn Owens just sun you all game. Like, obviously losing, I want to say it was Austin Aune who was the quarterback. Losing him has been just a huge difference, and so, you know, it's not the worst grudge, but I am aggravated with North Texas because I'm on the fade FIU train this year.
Yeah, FIU, 2 wins already. They were one of the worst teams in FBS last year. North Texas was a sleeper team for a lot of teams, for a lot of people in the G5, and not living up to the billing.
And they're in the American now too. Yikes.
Yikes, exactly.